Hello everyone, welcome to Towards ISPCS channel. I am an aspirant like you. I am here to share my experience of UPSC mains 2024. I have also written a mains earlier. I will share about my two mains experience about General Studies 1 and General Studies 2 in this video. I have explained essay paper in an earlier video. In next video, I will also explain GS3 and GS4. Now, coming to the video part, as I have mentioned earlier that I have written UPSC mains 2 times. I will share my exam hall experience here. What I was able to write in the exam hall, what could have been done better, how to use diagrams, how much marks can we gain with an impactful diagram, and what should be the way forward. Now let us start with our paper. Coming to the question this is General Studies paper 1, which consists of history, geography, society. We all know history, geography, society, Indian society mainly. After giving this paper, I realized that since last 2 years, UPSC is asking tough questions in geography. Tough questions in geography. For example, last year they asked about fjord, which not many people would have written about it. This time they asked about twister, which was a tough question. Also they asked about australis, aurora australis, and aurora borealis. These two questions were in the tough category, I would say. And this time Indian society component was higher. They asked many questions on that. And if you ask me what was the role of PYQ, I will say that PYQs are always important, be it prelims or mains. For example, we can see in the very first question the importance of PYQ. Coming to the question, underline the changes in the field of society and economy from the Rig Vedic to the later Vedic period. Now we should look that the question is asking about society and economy from Rig Vedic to later Vedic period. This a very similar question was asked earlier. I think it was 2023 or 2022. I do not remember currently. Now I will tell what I wrote in the exam hall. In the society part, I wrote about women, how the status of women degraded from Rig Vedic to later Vedic period. They earlier used to participate in Sabha, Samiti, etc. But later their participation was restricted to an extent. In the society part, society can be a major heading, and next major heading can be an economy. Now in society part, a subheading was women, another subheading can be caste. Caste system was caste system became more rigid in later Vedic period, as we all know. Now coming towards you can also make a diagram on caste system, a triangular diagram. You can mention how 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 they are ranked. We all know that who occupies the top position then comes, and there are untouchables also. In society part, you can also mention about religion. For example, Rig Vedic period was more of a naturalistic religion, not polytheistic religion. They used to worship nature. For example, water, air, Indra, rain god, thunder god, etc. And in later Vedic period, we know that the religious practices moved towards more orthodoxy, Rituals became more important. You can mention this. Rituals became more important. We can, in example, you can mention about Ashwamedha, Ashwamedha ritual, and many more rituals. And in this was, I think I wrote women, caste, religion in society, and in economy. You can mention about economy also. For example, in Rig Vedic period, economy was more of not very much centralized. A cow was an important animal. Cow was an important animal. Uh, and in economy part, we can also mention that private property became important in later Vedic period, which were not so much in early Vedic period. And in economy, we can also mention about their culinary practices, how they ate food. In Rig Vedic period, they used to eat simple foods. For example, milk, ghee, etc. In later Vedic period, this became more complex because later Vedic period saw more crops being grown, and polity has not been asked specifically, but it can be mentioned in economy part, or it can also be mentioned in society part as well. Now we can conclude. Let us talk about diagram. I think I also made a diagram in this question in the exam hall. This was the diagram which I got from somewhere. I mentioned about their housing practices, how the houses were earlier. I think earlier they were circular huts surrounded by boundary walls, wooden boundary walls. Then this was early Aryan house. Then came later Aryan house, which saw some changes. This was these were some things which could have been written. I think I wrote this question pretty good because I earlier mentioned the importance of PYQ. I was able to write this question well because I had learned the PYQ which was asked about this about practices of Vedic period earlier. Now coming to the question number 2, estimate the contribution of Pallavas of Kanchi for the development of art and literature. You should see that this question is about Pallavas and their art as well as their literature. Many people would have written about art but not about literature because question number 2, Pallavas of Kanchi, art and literature. In art part, we can write about their temple art. In art part, we can write about their temple art, about Mahendra Varman, Narsingh Varman, how they improved upon temple. Later temples were more large. Later temples also also had gopurams. You can talk about Dravidian architecture also. In art part, one can be temple, other art can be sculpture art. You can give an example of Arjuna's penance at Mahabalipuram and something like this. In art part, you can also mention about their paintings. In paintings, you can mention an example of Raja Rajavan with his mentor Karuvur. Mentor Karuvur. You can give an example. And in art part, temple painting sculptures. One of the most important thing which can be written is also, I think, in art part you can also mention about some bronze art maybe, but bronze art developed more refined in Chola period, but Pallavas they can also be mentioned in rather crude form. Then comes literature. If you ask me, I was not able to remember any example of a literature or during Pallavas period, but I wrote that their literature were in different languages, Tamil, Telugu, and Sanskrit also. These I wrote and then concluded. Now coming to the second question, what were the events that led to Quit India movement? Third question, Quit India movement, point out its results. This was a pretty straightforward question. First of all, you will have to mention what were the factors, events that led to Quit India movement. You can also mention about Gandhiji and Sarojini Naidu, Bombay, Golwaliar, tank, flag march. Then you can mention about their result, how Quit India movement was one of the turning point in getting independence. Also, it was repressed by British. These are the things which you can mention. Many points can be written in this. Then conclusion. Question number 4. What is sea surface temperature rise? How does it affect the formation of tropical cyclones? Sea surface temperature rise, we all know. You can mention that global warming is causing sea surface temperature rise. And in example, you can mention that Bay of Bengal is warming at pretty faster rate. Moreover, Arabian Sea is also warming, and is witnessing many cyclones these days. Then you will also explain about this. Then second part is formation of tropical cyclones. You can also mention the conditions for the tropical cyclones. Ideal condition 27 degrees Celsius. Then you can also mention a graph. In this you can mention a graph about how Arabian Sea, number of cyclones in Arabian Sea is increasing day by day, and Bay of Bengal cyclones are also seeing the same frequency, but Arabian Sea is witnessing more number of tropical cyclones, which was not the case earlier. Some types of diagram can be made in this. Then how does it affect the formation of tropical cyclones? If you can also mention one more diagram which is given in NCRT. We know this was like this. I, here you can mention I, and this how the tropical cyclone forms. You can mention in NCRT, but this for this you need to have the diagram on your fingertips. Means you should be able to draw it very fast. Then you will get the benefit of it. 0.5 marks can be achieved if you mention diagram. Question number 5. Why do large cities tend to attract more migrants than smaller towns? Discuss in light of conditions in developing countries. This type of question was also asked earlier. I think it was 2022, in which examiner asked about tier 2, and tier 3 cities. Now you will have to mention what are the factors which lead to more migrants. Large cities tend to attract more migrants than smaller towns. So you will have to mention why smaller towns, meaning tier 2 and tier 3 cities, do not attract migrants, and in larger cities like Bombay, Mumbai, Chennai, etc., Kolkata, they, despite being large cities, attract migrants, which leads to congestion, slum conditions, poor living conditions. Discuss in light of conditions in developing countries. You can mention few examples. Also, you will have to explain with the example of India how large cities are feeling the brunt of migration. What are the factors? Some of the factor can be that large cities are more economically developed, and despite tier 2 tier 3 cities having the potential for development, migrants do not want to migrate there because they lack awareness. Also, the facilities are not that much. You can mention few data points that how tier 2 tier 3 cities in India will will contribute to India's GDP and India's employment in coming decades. Then you can conclude accordingly. Now, coming to the phenomena of cloud bursts, we have to explain. This question can also come in GS3, but this time this came in GS1. Cloud burst, you will have to explain what are the, first of all, in introduction you can give example, you can give IMD's definition. IMD's definition. IMD's definition about cloud burst. Then you can explain how cloud burst happen and what are the implications of it. Though not asked, but it can be mentioned in last. Concept of demographic winter. Is the world moving towards such a situation? Elaborate. Demographic winter. I was not able to attempt this question, but because I was running low on time. But this can be, if a student have time, he can guess what this question is asking about. This was about that demographic winter refers to the stagnant or declining population in many countries. For example, Japan, Italy, recently China also. Most importantly, many European countries are witnessing demographic winter. These type of question also came in, if you remember, also came in prelims 2024. Now question number 8. Distinguish between gender equality, gender equity, and women's empowerment. This was a little bit conceptual question, which demanded an understanding. Why is it important to take gender concerns into account in program design and implementation? You will have to explain what is gender equality. For example, you can mention gender equality, Article 14. Article 14 talks about right to equality. In equity, you can mention I think Article 15, 16 can be mentioned here, because they talk about affirmative action which can lead to gender equity. And women's empowerment, you can mention many. First of all, you will have to explain what is women empowerment. What do you mean by women empowerment? You can mention some examples and some schemes, be it constitutional provisions or legislative provisions. Constitutional, legislative. Also, some government schemes can be mentioned. Now, why is it important to take gender concerns into account? Because we know that women are at the receiving end, be it in rural or urban. In rural, we can say that women do domestic work, unpaid domestic work, feminization of agriculture, and in urban we can say talk about glass ceiling, and we should talk about why schemes fail despite being ambitious, because they do not take into account gender concerns. That's why it is important to take gender concerns into account in the program design as well as implementation. In implementation, we can talk, in design we can talk how before a scheme is designed, public participation can be done. In implementation, we can talk about how Panchayati Raj PRIs can help. You can quote few examples also. For example, PRI and few women leader of PRIs can be quoted here, and you can also give a diagram how schemes are, what are the important features of a scheme, or you can mention program, because the question talk about program. It is better to write program, not a scheme. You can mention why the scheme is important, how a scheme is important, what are the gender concerns, how women can play a role. You can give a diagram on this. and get 0.5 marks extra. Then you can conclude accordingly. Question number 9. Intercaste marriages between castes which have socio-economic parity have increased to some extent, but this is less true of inter-religious marriages. Discuss. You can introduce the question, then in body part we can write and give example, but you should also look at this which have socio-economic parity. Intercaste marriages have increased, and that to some extent only, and in the among those castes which have socio-economic parity, meaning uh, uh, meaning pretty much higher caste will not marry higher caste. For example, we always see in newspaper various reports about Dalits being not allowed to marry, and intercaste violence. You can also mention about Khap panchayats, how uh, they they serve as extrajudicial institutions, honor killings. And in the second part of the question, less true of inter-religious marriages. You can also talk about some factors that which inhibit inter-religious marriages. First can be religious orthodoxy. In some religion, inter-religious marriages are not deemed valid. You can give example about some religions also, and also some currently prevailing political factors which inhibit inter-religious marriages. You can give example of love jihad narrative, which hinders inter-religious marriages. And then you can conclude accordingly. Question number 10. In dealing with socio-economic issues of development, what kind of collaboration between government, NGOs, and private sector would be most productive? Yes, in this question we can mention what is the role of government, what is the role of NGO and private sector. What kind of collaboration between them would be most productive? Yes, we can write, because we prepare about NGOs and private sector, civil society organization. In private sector, you can mention CSR's role. You can give example of Tata, Wipro, Azim Premji Foundation, about their work, how they contribute. And in the collaboration part, we can give a diagram. For example, I think I made a diagram which I had prepared at that time. You can mention government here, NGO here, private sector, and you can show some collaboration. What is the role of government? Government will give recognition to private sector. ठीक? Government will incentivize private sector. It can make law. For example, Companies Act was amended to for CSR activities. NGOs will help in public participation, will work at grassroots level, and private sector will fund the socio-economic activities and try to uplift the vulnerable sections. For example, women, backward caste, tribes, etc. These type of collaboration can be shown via diagram, which will be bit attractive and which can help us in getting some extra marks. Now coming to question number 11, great Cholas are no more yet their name is still remembered. This question is also a repeated question. It came in 2022. So we can see again that PYQs are important, be it prelims or mains. Their name is still remembered with great pride because of the highest achievement in art and architecture. Art and architecture. You have to talk about art as well as architecture. Now coming to art. I think in art we can mention about their paintings. Raja 1 and Karur. I think I also mentioned this in earlier question, which was about Pallavas. This will not be written in that question. This was I wrote this in Chola question. I think I should say sorry about this. I I mentioned that in flow, but I am very much sure that I did not write that in exam. I wrote that example of Raja Rajavan painting with his mentor Karur in this question. In art, we can mention paintings, and most importantly, you will have to mention about bronze art, bronze sculpture, sculpt, bronze sculpture of Cholas. Example, Nataraja, very much famous. You can also mention this art is still remembered. The question is asking about is still remembered. For example, you can give that an idol, an Nataraja bronze sculpture is showcased. I think is somewhere. I think it is showcased at CERN, which is a nuclear reactor. It shows how it is still valid today. Now, in art, we can also mention about Sengol, their relevance, contemporary relevance. In architecture part, we all know their temple architecture was magnificent. For in example, we can mention Brihadeshwar, Raja Rajavan, take and Gangai Konda Chozapuram, Rajendra Chola. We can also mention about we can mention that how their temples were magnificent. Large gopurams were constructed. Temples were also used for their in architecture part. Temples were also used for socio-economic activities as well. These are something which we can mention. And in introduction part, when we are introducing, after introduction part, we can give a map also. You can give a map, and for example, this is Sri Lanka, this is Andaman Nicobar, इधर इंडोनेशिया मलेशिया वगैरह और इधर मालदीव्स. You can show how their maritime power was great, how they were Cholas were there, how they were connected, their trade routes were important. This is not directly asked, but it can be mentioned. Maritime role of Cholas, how the shipping industry was also. Shipping industry can also be mentioned in their, I think, art section. Shipping industry can be mentioned. And now you can conclude accordingly. I think in conclusion we can mention Sengol. You can conclude with Sengol, which was recently introduced in Lok Sabha. Now question number 12. How far is it correct to say that First World War was fought essentially for the preservation of balance of power? I did not prepare world history. I could not write this very well, so I will not explain it. But we should. But this time, I think this time the questions of world history were easy. Which this gives us lesson that we should not leave completely. We should study world history as well. We should study world history, their basics. You can watch some videos so that you know basics, what happened, how First World War was fought, what were the reasons, then how First World War treaties, for example, Treaty of Versailles led to Second World War, Hitler's rise. These are some of the basics which can be prepared from videos, and we should not leave world history. This should be done, be it not in depth. If you are running low of time, you can prepare not in depth, but basics should always be prepared. Coming to question number 14, groundwater potential, serious decline, food security impact. The question, first part of the question is this: serious decline. You can give, first of all, you can introduce groundwater potential of the Gangetic Valley. You can also give a pie chart. You can show that how much groundwater is consumed in agriculture. For example, I think agriculture consumes 70% of groundwater. Then you can mention domestic industry. These things can be mentioned. A pie chart can be given, and we can show serious decline by quoting some data if you know. And you can show how it will impact food security. For example, excessive groundwater use in western UP in western UP, for example in sugarcane crops, is causing groundwater decline, and which it will certainly impact food security. And some other examples, for example we can show green revolution green revolution and how it led to excessive groundwater use in Punjab region. This can be shown, and you can also mention how it will impact food security of India, because water is the most important part in food. Now coming to aurora australis, aurora borealis, how were these triggered? This question, recently these were seen, and also they were mentioned in newspapers. Aurora australis is seen in, we know that aurora australis, these are magnificent waves. In aurora australis are seen in South Pole region, aurora borealis North Pole. You should mention what are the factors that leads to these, and how are these triggered. In this we will have to mention about the factors. What are the factors that led to these? As I earlier mentioned that these two were tough questions, which was not too much easy. For example, what is a twister? Not many people would have known what is twister, because it is not mentioned in routine sources. It came in exam because it was in current affairs. And why are the majority of twisters observed in Gulf of Mexico? Twisters are tornadoes. Tornadoes. We know how tornadoes are formed, but this examiner asked another name of tornadoes, that is twister. Those who have followed the current affair will know and write. But this was a tough question, I would say. Now coming to question number 17. What is regional disparity? How regional disparity? Regional disparity, how it is different from diversity, how serious is the issue of regional disparity? All these four questions are from society section. Regional disparity, Kshetri Asamanta. You will have to define regional disparity. Then you will have to show how it is different from diversity. Diversity, for example, India has linguistic diversity, religious diversity, tribal diversity. Many types of diversity are seen in India, but regional disparity is a different thing. How serious is regional disparity? Yes, it is serious, because this many factors can be included. For example, seriousness can be seen in population, north south north north south divide, and some underdeveloped region can be mentioned. For example, Marathwada, northeast region, Vidarbha, northeast region can be shown how they are lacking, and it shows regional disparity. Northeast region is not developed that much as compared to maybe western India, Gujarat and Mumbai. This is how you can explain about by giving examples, and talk about seriousness along various factors, be it in population or economic development. You can also draw a map and show uh, human development index HDI. You can show it on map, and then conclude. Despite comprehensive policies for equity and social justice, underprivileged sections are not yet getting the full benefits of affirmative action. Full benefit of affirmative action. This is about the reservation policy envisaged in our constitution, envisaged by the constitution. Comprehensive policies for equity and social justice. Reservation is for equity as well as social justice. Underprivileged sections are not yet getting. In this, you can mention case study, as I mentioned in exam, Bihar caste census case study. In this, you can show how some castes, despite the affirmative actions, they are not being able to reap the benefits of it. You can also mention Dalit elitism, how some castes reap more benefits from reservation, uh, and some lower castes are not able to get benefited from the affirmative action. And then in conclusion we can in way forward and conclusion we can mention Supreme Court's recent judgment about how Supreme Court have ruled that there can be subclassification. This can be our way forward. Globalization has increased urban migration by skilled young and married women. Many people might have missed this unmarried women and would have written general answer, meaning yes, globalization has increased urban migration by skilled young people. If But the question is asking about women specifically, especially how has this trend impacted upon their personal freedom. First of all, this sentence must be validated by some data, and some diagrams also can be made. How has this has impacted their personal freedom? Yes, this has impacted personal freedom. For example, women can study higher education. They are decision making. They are not bound by family rules. Nuclear family, joint family. This can be shown, and relationship with family. Personal freedom and relationship with family. Personal freedom, we can also mention live-in relationships, Dink syndrome, double income, no kid. These all things can be mentioned. And in relationship with family, we can mention that patriarchy is now fought against. Patriarchy is decreasing, and women are now becoming empowered and more independent. We can give some examples, some data points, and conclude. Critically analyze the proposition that there is a high correlation between India's cultural diversities and socio-economic marginalities. India's cultural diversity. Yes, India is culturally diverse. We can show by example, and also you can show on a map how India is culturally diverse by showing different different cultures, be it of tribe, northeastern culture, southern cultures, northern cultures, Hindi belt culture, western India culture. This will show how India is culturally diverse. And second part is socio-economic marginalities. The question is asking about high correlation. Yes, India is culturally diverse, but there is socio-economic marginalities as well. In this, I think I mentioned about Christophe Jeffrelot case study about minorities. Despite India being diverse, minorities, socioeconomic development, socioeconomic indicators of minority community is not very much good as per Christophe Jeffrelot. I mentioned some data point which I had prepared earlier. This can be done and conclude, and the question can be concluded accordingly. Deru. This was my attempt at exam hall. I have tried my best to explain, but the attempt can be made much better if we prepare beforehand. I would say that general studies paper 1 was a mix of PYQ repetition and some unique questions. For example, this one, and twister, as well as auroras. Now in next video I will talk about GS2 explanation. You can join our Telegram channel given in description, and kindly subscribe to our channel, because in UPSC preparation many people waste their time. For example, not many people know what to do and what not to do. This is very much important, so that we do not waste our time and strategize accordingly and get our desired services as soon as possible. Thank you.